my fellow YouTube do-it-yourself champions. Today I'm going to help you identify some of the reasons as to why your car will disappoint you or will act upon you at the most unpredictable time. And I will help you get to understand what you should do to ensure that you get to avoid some of these issues that would lead to you getting stranded. I want you to stick around because at the end of the video I'm going to tell you about two very important items that you can't afford to miss, and these are actually the most important ones. So stick around and you are going to know the most important items that you should have to avoid disappointment by your car. The vehicle that you have is your baby. I'm only showing people who really want to take care of the vehicle how to avoid and prevent some of these unforeseen issues that could arise in the course of your driving. The most common reason that we would have a car stall on you is the check engine. The check engine is very common. I would actually define the check engine as your car's way of communicating to you. Don't ignore it. That's a very important thing that you should actually pay attention to. It's just like a baby crying. So pay attention to your check engine and know what it is that your car is telling you to do. Because when you really need your car the most, it will disappoint you if you have been ignoring the check engine. Why won't your car start? Have you tried igniting your car and you happen to just hear a cranking noise? Some of the reasons that your car could not start are like battery terminals. The most common one is battery terminals. The battery terminals could be corroded. They could have some residue that is usually as a result of the reaction of the battery, and I think it's air or something, or water. So it forms some white like coating that I would call corrosion. So if they are corroded, you will need to clean them up, because if you don't, there will be no transmission of power from the battery to your cables and into your vehicle. That actually acts as an insulator, but in the wrong way. So battery terminals need to be cleaned. And how do you clean them? You need to have a steel brush. A steel brush is more or less like a toothbrush, but with wires that you're going to actually scrape off the residue that usually acts as a coating around your battery terminals. Because if you don't do that, you will have a problem, a big problem when it comes to starting. There will be no transmission of power in your battery. And the other issue is low battery. What causes a low battery? The low battery is caused by a couple of issues, a number of issues. And one of the reasons as to why you would have a low battery is, one, leaving your headlights on. Some people don't have vehicles that automatically shut their headlights off. If you leave your headlights on, this will make sure that your battery is properly drained. More so if you're like leaving for work and you park your car, go to work, leave your headlights on, it will properly drain your battery. So that's one of the most common reasons as to why your vehicle would not start. Another reason as to why you'd have a low battery or a malfunctioning battery is if your terminals, we have the positive and the negative terminal in your battery. They are actually always indicated using a plus or minus. The plus to mean positive and the other the negative terminal. So if your terminals are not properly screwed in, most vehicles, if not all, are usually fastened using a number 10 spanner. Number 10, by the way, never miss to have a number 10 spanner among your tools, let this be your number one tool. Number 10 spanners will mostly be used in almost all parts of the vehicle. So most of them are usually either fastened using a number 10 or 12 spanner, and you have to make sure that they are not playing around, they're not wobbling around, by actually fastening them yourself. You don't have to call a mechanic to come and fasten your spanners for you. So always make sure that your battery terminals are actually fastened, and make sure that they are not moving around, they're not playing around. Otherwise, you're not going to have a problem with starting your car. Battery problem could actually make you misdiagnose the problem, and this is because it mimics starter issues. And if you want to rule out the starter being the problem, make sure that you first start the vehicle. And if you have a second person with you, make sure they tap on the starter using a tool, like a plastic tool, gently. Tap on the starter as the other person tries to ignite the vehicle. If it starts, know that that's the culprit. Know that the starter is the culprit, and that's how you diagnose a starter issue. And if you don't know what a starter is, just check online. We have a lot of information online. Know where to locate your specific starter depending on your car's model, make, and you are going to see where it's located and how it actually looks. That's a very important thing to know. So you could be somewhere in the forest and you need to diagnose what the problem could be. The other reason that we could have a drained battery is if you have alternator issues. An alternator is a gadget that usually, an electric gadget of a vehicle that usually charges the battery. It's like a motor. It charges the battery but using an electric current. If you have a faulty alternator, your battery will more than often show you signs of death, and it will always actually read low battery. How do you know that you have a problem with your alternator? The most common way of diagnosing alternator problems is by starting your car. Open the hood of your vehicle. If you disconnect the battery terminals and your vehicle turns off, that's a sign that you have a dead alternator. It's a very good way of diagnosing a dead alternator, other than using the meter that you usually get to read the amount of current that there is that's being disseminated by your alternator. You could also find that you have a similar problem, such that you actually drive your vehicle for quite a distance, then when you get into traffic, your car keeps turning off. The reason could be a faulty alternator, faulty battery, but we have to center down into the reason as to why you are having the low battery. Some batteries usually have a green indicator, a green or blue indicator that tells you that it's fully charged or whether it's low in charge. So also use your battery indicators to know. But that's one of the reasons as to why you would have a low battery. If your battery is old, you could have a problem with your battery. You also have to check on electrical issues. If you have consistent low battery warnings, it could be an indication of other electrical issues in your vehicle. One other thing, if you kind of notice your car has dimming lights, your lights are on but they kind of keep flickering and dimming on and off, that's another sign of a faulty alternator. If you have a problem with starting, the most important thing I'd recommend you to do is jump start your vehicle. What's jump starting? If you check one of my videos, my previous videos, I showed you the jumper cables. Those are a must-have in your car, and the link is in the description below. You're going to see the jumper cables and the video with the jumper cables right there. Jump start your vehicle using another person's vehicle, and that's the first mitigation that you're going to have when it comes to salvaging the situation with regard to low battery. What other reason would make your car not start? A blown fuse. In the same video that you're going to find the description of right here, you are going to find that a blown fuse would something as small as having a blown fuse would cause your car not to start. And you have to also know how to check whether you have blown fuses or not, and you use a nose pliers. I showed you a Swiss knife in the same video that I'm talking about, and I'd recommend you to go check it out. The Swiss knife usually has a nose pliers. You use the nose pliers to grab the fuse and check it to see whether the terminals are connected. The terminals have a connection. If they don't, you could actually manipulate this by using a wire and connect the two, but that's not usually recommended. But in the case of a situation where you're so desperate, you'd go for that. But I'd recommend that you have fuses in your vehicle. So that's another very important thing. So you could have blown fuses, and another reason as to why your car could not start. Every vehicle has a mass airflow sensor. A mass airflow sensor is a gadget that usually helps to regulate the amount of oxygen that comes into your car, the air. So if it's faulty, broken, or even dirty, you could be having problems with starting your car. And what do you do if you have a dirty mass airflow sensor? The first thing I'd recommend you to do is take it out, use an electric contact cleaner and spray it inside, but first blow off the dust, the dust from it, and use an electric contact cleaner and make sure it's dry, then reinsert it. If you reinsert it, it usually has some very small screws. I think that's a number 8, either a number 8 or star screwdriver. So make sure you open it up, check it out, blow in, or rather spray the contact cleaner, the electric contact cleaner, or you could use a curb cleaner in some cases if you really don't have anything else. So spray it in there, and it's going to clean up the mess that's inside there. Then reinsert it and see whether it's going to help you, because if you have a faulty mass airflow sensor, you are going to definitely have a problem with you're going to be running rich. The high gas consumption of your car will be crazy. So you really have to take care of your mass airflow sensor. And a way of diagnosing the mass airflow sensor functionality is by going to a person with the same model and make of your car, get their mass airflow sensor, insert it into your own, and if your car runs fine and starts okay without any issue, then your mass airflow sensor is faulty and will need to be replaced. So the mass airflow sensor is a key device. Let's go to the next reason as to why your car will not start. Something as simple as having your key fob battery faulty. Something as simple as having low battery in your key fob. The key fob battery, once low, will not be detected by the computer system while you're trying to start the car. So always make sure that you suspect this. If at all you've used it for quite a long time, get to replace your batteries, because a small issue like a battery running low in your key fob could bring about a big problem and cause your car not to start. It could lead to that. So make sure you have your key fob batteries replaced if they are dead, and suspect that if you really can't identify the reason as to why you're having your car not start. The other reason as to why your car would not start is possibly if you have an immobilizer or an electrical security system in your car, more than often called the cutout. If you have a cutout and it's possibly faulty or was not inserted as should, maybe by poor workmanship or one reason or the other, that could be another reason. So make sure before you and I would recommend you guys to have a cutout in your car. Although if someone really wants to steal your car, they are going to steal it because they're going to follow the wires and know where the cutout is. What I'd recommend you to have is an engine immobilizer. If you have an engine immobilizer, you are possibly going to be safer. But if you're in a very insecure area, I would recommend that you use some other methods, like when you park your vehicle, make sure you open the hood, disconnect one of the battery terminals and let it sit. That is the negative terminal. Let it sit there without having to connect it. then close the hood and then leave your car there. You will have locked the car, and anyone coming to unlock it will not manage, because the electrical system is disabled and your vehicle cannot open without that. So you're the only person who will manage to come and use the manual key to open it up and start the vehicle and go. So yeah, so back to our point. Make sure you have you check your electrical immobilizer. That's the cutout. The cutout could be another culprit as to why your vehicle will not start. Low oil and coolant level. Low coolant oil level and low oil level could also make your vehicle not start. But you really don't want to get to that point. The reason as to why I reiterated that this video is meant for people who really want to take care of their vehicles like babies is because of one of these points that I'm telling you right now. Low coolant, low oil, those should never arise in your car unless you really want to have a new engine installed in your vehicle. Low coolant levels and low engine oil levels could make your engine seize. Why is this? Because the engine will cause a lot of friction if it doesn't have oil, and you'll damage the internal parts of it. If you have low coolant level, it's going to go and cause a problem with your gaskets. You're going to you're going to cause a blowout in your gaskets, and that will mean engine problems. So you never want to have a problem when it comes to low engine oil and low coolant levels. I use an iDrive system that tells me the amount of oil in my vehicles. But if you have a different kind of vehicle, you use a dipstick to check the amount of oil. And how do you do this? You pull out the dipstick, use a piece of microfiber cloth, wipe off the dipstick, then make sure you dip it in, give it about a minute or so, then lift the dipstick and look at the level of the high and low amount of oil. That's how you know it. What about the coolant? The coolant, you know the amount of coolant by opening the radiator cap and then just looking at it to see whether it's at the whether the amount of coolant is at the level recommended. Some of them will show you from the radiator cap, others will show you from the reservoir tank. So always check to see the amount of coolant there is in your vehicle. The other problem that could make your vehicle not start is, although this is very rare, faulty spark plugs. If your spark plugs are faulty, your vehicle will not start, because they usually trigger the heat, the spark for your car to actually start. If they are faulty, dirty, or maybe damaged, your car will possibly not start. So always make sure you check them out. Remember, in my previous video, the same one that I'm asking you to check out, you will see that I showed you a deep socket spanner. This is a deep socket spanner is something that you're going to use to open up the spark plugs. So very important, have a deep socket spanner so you can actually check your spark plugs to know whether you have if you have clean spark plugs. You can use a contact cleaner to clean them up, a carb cleaner also. And if they are faulty, you should replace them. And how do you know that your spark plugs are faulty or maybe need replacement? They're going to be filled with carbon residue. That's black color. You know that they are pretty much okay. If you open and they are brown in color, that means that there's proper combustion in your vehicle, and the compression is going to be pretty much okay. If you have good spark plugs, that means you will have no car starting problems. So we are done with the starting problems of your car. Now let's look at leaking fluids. Have you ever parked your vehicle somewhere and noticed that you have a puddle of fluid under your vehicle? Possibly yes, possibly no, but there are reasons as to why you'd have some liquid under your vehicle, pooling under your vehicle. And the most important thing that you should do as a car owner or as a driver is to identify the kind of fluid or liquid that there is under your vehicle. There are very many different kinds of fluids. We start with the wiper blades. The wiper blades usually, the wiper system usually has fluids. That's all the way from the, it's usually installed at the engine compartment under the hood. We have coolant. Coolant usually comes in different colors. We have brake fluid. That's another fluid in your vehicle. We have transmission fluid, and we also have the other kind of liquids that would come from maybe your AC system. If you run your AC for quite a long time, you will more than often find a pool of water under your vehicle, just in about 50 mLs or less, dripping. So you have to learn how to identify the color of the fluids in your vehicle. You also have to identify the smell of your fluids. You also have to identify your consistency, viscosity, so you can differentiate between oil. You can differentiate between water from something else like coolant. Some coolants usually have very sweet smell. If you notice that you have oil at the bottom of your car, that's a red flag. You should never have coolant or oil at the bottom of your car, or rather pooling under your car. That's a sign of a big problem, and it's usually even worse if the oil is mixed with water or coolant. That's usually a sign of your vehicle having issues. So you should always learn how to identify the kind of fluids that you have in your car. That will help you save the situation. The other reason that we could have leaking fluids is a broken hose or pipe. If you have a broken hose, that's a red flag. You need to identify which hose it is that's broken. The vehicles usually have multiple hoses, and if you have a mat and slide under your vehicle, you are going to help identify what it is that you're losing. Someone could ask, why am I being asked by do-it-yourself channel to identify the color and smell of my fluid? How? Of my vehicle's fluid? How? What's the need for that? The reason is, if you notice some fluid down under your vehicle and it's happened to smell it, you will actually center down to what it is that you're losing. But if you don't identify the viscosity, color, the smell, it's gonna be a tall order for you to get and to identify what it is that you're losing, because there are so many, there are like hundreds of pipes inside your vehicle. So if you don't identify the fluid by how it looks or how it appears or presents, you're going to be in trouble. So you really need to identify your fluids. That's it about the fluids. Now we go to another problem another problem that many people usually face. That's overheating of your vehicle. What's overheating? Overheating is any temperature reading above 90 degrees centigrade or above 195 degrees Fahrenheit. How do you know this? There's usually a temperature gauge. If you look at your odometer, you are going to see a gauge. There's usually a temperature gauge right there. And if yours doesn't have numbers, if it's not numbered, there's always a red line that should never go beyond half. If it goes beyond half, know that you have a problem when it comes to overheating. And overheating is another very bad thing. You should never want to have your car overheat. That's the beginning of problems. So if your car overheats, what do? The most important thing for you to do is turn off your car. Open your hood. Remember, don't open the radiator cap. If you open the radiator cap, it's usually pressurized, and you could have a problem because you're gonna get burnt. The fluid is usually very hot. So open the hood, let it cool down, and it's only then that you can open the radiator cap to see whether you have enough coolant, to see whether you have a problem with your cooling system when it comes to water, and also the fan. Make sure that your safety precedes anything else. Don't open the radiator cap. What are some of the reasons as to why you would have your car overheating? One very important thing, low coolant. It's very important to consistently check your level of coolant so you can know whether you have enough. And also top it up. It's usually 50-50. The best method is usually using 50% of coolant and 50% of distilled water. That's usually the best way of having your coolant. The other way that you'd have your car overheating is if you have blown gaskets. Blown gaskets are a major mechanical problem, and you need to have your car checked. That's usually towards the tail end, because maybe you did not check your coolant level, or maybe you ran on low fluids. That's one of the reasons and causes of having a blown gasket. If one of your pipes burst, you're going to lose a lot of water, so you also have to check your pipes. If you have old pipes, make sure you replace them, and don't drive your car if you have those. You're going to be portending a problem in the future. Make sure you replace your pipes. You could also have a faulty water pump. If you have a faulty water pump, the faulty water pump will not pump water or coolant in the system and will not circulate it as should. If you have a faulty radiator or a clogged radiator, that's another reason as to why you would have your vehicle overheat, and you have to either have your radiator cleaned, serviced, or replaced. The radiator usually has fans. The fans will always run and be activated by the sensor. There are different sensors. You have your thermostat. It will always tell you what it is that's happening. And radiator fans will always be turned on to make sure that the coolant is circulated pretty well and cooled. If you look at the anatomy of the radiator, you will notice that it has fins. The fins, if you have if the fins are damaged, it will either need to be serviced or replaced, and you can actually do this yourself if you have time by using a nose pliers to straighten the fins of the radiator. Low engine oil and a faulty radiator cap could also lead to your car to overheat. The radiator cap usually has a spring that usually has every single vehicle has a specific radiator cap that be used on it. So you have to make sure that you check your radiator cap to make sure that you have the correct cap for it. Otherwise, you're going to have issues with your overheating. If you have collapsed pipes, water pipes, that could be another reason, because it's not going to allow circulation of water and coolant to run through the engine system, or rather the compartment. And what could lead to you having a collapsed pipe? A collapsed pipe could occur because maybe your pipes are clogged, or maybe you have an outlet that is a drain, or rather outlet that is blocked. There's usually a drain that goes into the drainage cap, that's of the coolant. So if it's blocked, you will definitely have a collapsed pipe because there's so much pressure building inside the system. So the only way to prevent this is to have regular maintenance, and this will help you prevent unforeseen problems. Make sure you have regular maintenance and coolant checks. You can do all those at your home by just checking the level of coolant. Let's go to another very important reason as to why you will have a car problem. This is a flat tire. If your tires are flat, you will definitely get stuck on the road. And what causes a flat tire? The most common reason as to why you'd have a flat tires is if your treads are worn out. If your wheels or rather tires are worn out, you are definitely going to be prone to having a flat tire, because the treads of your tires are the ones that help you to be farthest from the ground where there possibly are spikes and other things. Every single tire has tread depth indicators. The tread indicators will always tell you and show you whether your wheels need replacement of the tires or not. So always check on your tread indicators. Those are the small lines that, check them out here. These are the small lines that will always indicate the wearing out of your tires. So spikes and other sharp objects could cause a flat tire. But then again, if you run on low tire pressure, you will definitely have a flat tire, because your rim will be pressing on your tires and it's going to be eating onto it, and that will actually cause a puncture. So always make sure you have correct tire pressure. And if you checked my previous video, I showed you one of the important things to have in your vehicle is the tire compressor, the one that inflates your tire. Don't miss to have that in your vehicle, otherwise you're going to have running problems. Without that, you cannot even measure the amount of pressure you have in your tires. So a tire compressor, which also has a link in this video description on where you can get one. Make sure you invest in one, and you are going to be in a better position. Still, remember, at the end of the video I'll tell you two very important things that you should never miss to have in your vehicle. These are just like lifesavers, so stick around and you're going to see those. How would you know that you have a tire puncture? You would definitely have a rumbling noise as you drive, and alongside that you're going to possibly have a wobbly kind of movement. You'll be swaying from side to side. So pay attention to I believe that a good driver will always pay keen attention to the noises in the vehicle. If you hear a new noise, make sure that you have you know what that noise is, so you can take action. If you have a flat tire, always make sure that you have your lock nut. Every vehicle usually has lug nuts, but there's one specific lock nut. This is mine. It has a special kind of shape, and this is for the security of your vehicle. This is used to open and secure your rims, to ensure that nobody steals your vehicle or makes it hard for someone to steal your vehicle, to steal your wheels really easily. So this makes it hard for the thieves. Make sure you invest in lock nuts, at least one in every wheel. So that's very important. So there is also a tire repair kit that I have here. This tire repair kit is something I showed you last time. So make sure you have you invest in a tire repair kit, a puncture repair kit. This is going to help you when you're fixing your tire really quick. And most important thing is to have a very functional and properly serviced and functional jack. Your car jack is very important. Make sure you have a good one, and you are going to be in a good position. When you're repairing your tires, or when you're repairing a puncture, make sure that you pull over to a safe position, if it's safe for you to do so, and engage the parking brake. Make sure that's very important. And alongside that, if you can use rocks or stones to reinforce the immobilization of your vehicle, so you cannot have a problem with accidents when it comes to lifting and jacking up your car. And also make sure that you have your safety attire, which I also showed you in the same video that I'm talking about. Your reflective jacket, make sure you have that. And make sure you also before opening your nuts, your lug nuts, make sure you loosen them. Make sure you loosen your lug nuts prior to lifting your vehicle. Loosen them, then lift your vehicle. That will make it easy for you that will make it easier for you to open them up. Then elevate your vehicle and undo it. But the most important thing that people usually forget to check is whether they have a properly serviced and inflated spare tire. Don't ignore your spare tire, because when you need it the most, that's when it will actually disappoint you if you do not take care of it. Make sure it has proper pressure, make sure it's well maintained and properly kept. The other safety equipment that I'd like you to have are those that I highlighted in a previous video. Those are like your safety vest, reflective cones, and triangles. Those are very important. You'll also find the link in the description below on where you can find them and how much they cost. So make sure you check them out. There are different types of tires, and you have to know what kind of tires you run. There are run-on flats, there are tubeless, and those with tubes. Those have different kind of care, and you cannot use the repair kit that I showed you on tires that have tubes. the most important thing to know is what kind of tires you run on, so that will help you know what to do. I use run on flat, and in the event of a puncture, it will give me a couple of kilometers even before I get my tires fixed. Maybe in case of an emergency, or rather a dangerous situation, I can still drive off. So run on flats are very good tires that I would recommend you to get, and still you're going to find the link in the description below. Get your run on flat tires, very important. They're pretty pricey, but worth the while. So the other problem that many people usually have are brake problems. If you have brake problems, these are actually non-negotiable, and telltale signs that you have brake problems are like a soft brake pedal. If you step on it and it feels really soft, just know that you have a problem with your brake pedal and brake system for that matter, and should be checked. The other reason as to why you should suspect a brake problem is if you hear squeaky or maybe noise in your brake system, as you brake, you know that you have a brake issue. Or maybe if you get long braking distance, suspect that your brakes are either worn out or not functioning as should, or maybe you ran low on brake fluid. Remember the brake fluids I told you about. Always important to check out what these brake fluids are like, and know when to change them. Another common problem that some people will have is electrical issues. Electrical issues are mostly caused by poor workmanship. If the electrician or a wire person that did your wiring in the vehicle did something shoddy, they could cause you a big problem, because those could even lead to a fire. So always make sure that you have a good qualified person doing your electrical wiring. And if you ever have exposed wires in your vehicle, I told you about the insulating tape. Invest in an insulating tape. It's a very cheap device. This is just a normal tape, but it helps you insulate and cover the broken wires and insulators. This is very important and could save you from a fire. The other problem that many people usually face is that of the AC. The AC, I shared a video on the AC. You'll find the video link in the description of this video. When you really need it the most, when you need to get cool, that's when you will actually know how worthy and valuable it is. So make sure you have your proper maintenance of your cooling system. Make sure you change your air filters. In the previous video I showed you how to. You will find the link in the description below. And make sure you also have your refrigerant checked. A low amount of refrigerant could indicate a problem in either maybe leaking refrigerant, and you will possibly not have a proper cooling system. Make sure your fans are working, and also make sure that you have your air filters changed when it's due. So those are some of the important things when it comes to your AC. And you will always know that you have a problem with your AC when you have strange odor or some strange noises when the AC starts kicking in. That's how you know that you have a problem with your AC, either poor maintenance or you have low refrigerant, like you're turning on the AC and you're still in a hot situation. The last issue that I would like to highlight today is vibration of your vehicle. What could cause vibration of your vehicle? Loose lug nuts, that's the wheel nuts. If they're loose, you'll have a problem with your vehicle. You could also have a loose cross member. The cross member is the one that stabilizes your chassis and transmission. If you have that loose, you're definitely going to have vibration of your vehicle. You need your mechanic to check and make sure that it's tightened enough and that it's not loose. And you also have to make sure that you have wheel balancing and alignment done properly as should. You are going to prevent some of these issues. Now, here we are at the most important part of the video. I promised you that I'll show you two very important things that you're going to have in your vehicle, that you should have, that will actually possibly even save your life. the most important thing to have that you should never miss is your car fire extinguisher. Your car's fire extinguisher is very important. Make sure it's properly labeled, make sure it has an expiry date, and this will help you save your possibly your lifetime investment, your vehicle. Before you call 911 or your police or fire extinguishing companies, you will have actually saved your situation. You could be at a mechanic's place and then you end up not getting any help, and this is what will save the situation. Some welding could be going on in your car, and this could save your situation. And just before I forget, if you ever go to a welder and the welder is actually welding something in your vehicle, always remember to disconnect your battery terminals, otherwise you will lose your vehicle that day if you don't do that. That's a take-home message. But most important, have your fire extinguisher with you. The other very important thing I told you about is this. Make sure you invest in an OBD2 scanner. I would never reiterate this any better. An OBD2 scanner is a must-have. Make sure you invest in it. It's not so expensive, but it's worth the while. This is a scanner that you insert in your vehicle, and it's going to tell you what the exact problems there are in your vehicle. Make sure you get this, and it will always diagnose your vehicle, it will clear your codes, it will make sure that you have a glimpse of, or rather a breakdown of every single problem your vehicle has. You will find a link of the OBD2 scanner right here in the video description, so keep an eye. There's quite a number of links in the video description of things that we've talked about. Make sure you will check them out. It was a pretty lengthy video, and I really thank you for having stayed all this long. And one thing for sure, you will always learn how to do it yourself with Bill. And make sure you keep an eye on the next videos, because you will always learn. Share the videos with your friends, family, and this is something that will help you greatly with your loved ones. In one of the next videos, I will show you how to retrieve your keys from your vehicle if you have locked them in and you don't have any other way. I will show you how to do it using this specific device. So always keep an eye on the next videos, and you will thank yourself for having subscribed to this channel. And thank you for having stayed here with me, and let's continue being do-it-yourself champions with Bill. Goodbye.